It all started on a cold Monday morning in Lagos. Annabel was rushing to catch a bus to her office in Victoria Island. As she walked past the usual street corner, she noticed a man sitting on the floor. He looked tired and dirty. His clothes were torn, and one of his legs was bandaged. She almost ignored him. Almost. But something made her stop. He looked up at her. His eyes weren't just sad, they were full of something deeper. Pain. And maybe wisdom? "Good morning," he said in a low, tired voice. Annabel opened her bag, pulled out a pack of meat pie and a bottle of water, and gave it to him. "Thank you, my daughter," he said, his voice cracking. She didn't think much of it and walked away. But the next day, he was still there. So she did the same thing again. And again. Every single day. Her friends, especially Sandra and Anaya, laughed at her. "Annabel, you be moo-moo-oh," Sandra said one afternoon. "All these Lagos beggars? They're actors. You're feeding a liar." "I don't know," Annabel replied. "He feels different. I just feel led to help him." Weeks passed. Months. Every morning, she brought him food. They started talking. She learned his name was Uncle Ben. He didn't talk much about his past. He only asked questions about her. Her job, her family, her dreams. One day, he wasn't at his usual spot. She looked around. Nothing. The next day, the same. 3 days passed. No Uncle Ben. Then the 4th day, something strange happened. As she was about to cross the road, a black Range Rover pulled up beside her. The window rolled down slowly. A clean-shaven man, wearing a suit and dark shades, called out, "Annabel." She froze. The man smiled. "It's me." She blinked. Her heart skipped. It was him. Uncle Ben. But now he didn't look homeless. His skin was fresh, his hair trimmed, and his voice had strength. What happened?" she asked, shocked. He laughed quietly. "Get in. Let me tell you everything." She hesitated, then entered the car. It smelled like new leather and expensive perfume. As the driver took off, Uncle Ben, or whatever his real name was, removed his shades and looked at her. "My name is not Ben," he said. "My name is Collins. Collins Daniel." Her mouth opened slightly. That name sounded familiar. "I'm the CEO of CD Holdings," he added. She stared at him like a ghost had just spoken. CD Holdings. That was the real estate company that built half the estates in Lekki. She had even sent her CV there once. "Wait," she whispered. "You're..." He nodded. "I was testing something. Something personal. And you passed a test that most people fail." Annabel couldn't speak. He continued. "You saw me when I had nothing. You fed me, talked to me. You didn't know who I was, yet you treated me like I mattered." The car turned into a quiet estate. The gate opened before them like magic. Inside, the house was huge. More like a mansion. Then he said something that nearly made her faint. "I have a job offer for you." Before she could answer, someone walked out of the mansion's front door. It was her best friend, Sarah. "Annabel." Sarah said, eyes wide in shock. Annabel turned to Collins. "Wait. You know her?" Collins smiled. "Sarah is my sister." Annabel felt dizzy. What was going on? Annabel couldn't breathe for a second. She looked at Sarah. Then back at Collins. "You two are related?" Sarah ran down the stairs and hugged Annabel. "Yes, Collins is my elder brother. But we kept it quiet because of something he's been working on." Annabel pulled away, confused. "I don't understand. Why were you pretending to be homeless? Why sit on the street every day like that?" Collins' smile faded. He looked serious now. He motioned for her to sit down on the couch in the living room. The place looked like a luxury hotel. Glass table, soft leather seats, wide TV screen. He took a deep breath. Years ago, he leaned forward. Something happened. My driver hit a street hawker by mistake. A young boy. We rushed him to the hospital, paid the bills. But I couldn't forget the look in his eyes. The fear. The hunger. Annabel listened quietly, her heart pounding. That night, I went home and sat in my room, thinking about everything, Collins continued. I realized that I didn't understand life outside my mansion. I had never felt real hunger. I had never been ignored. He sighed. So, I decided to step out of my world. I stepped away from the company, changed my look, slept in shelters, sat by the roadside. I wanted to feel what it meant to have nothing, to see who would notice me when I had nothing. Annabel's eyes widened slightly. You did all that, just to test people? No, he said quickly. Not to test, to understand, to feel, to reconnect. I didn't plan to stay long, maybe a week. But then you came. She blinked. Me. Collins nodded. You were the only person who treated me like a human being. No camera, no show, just kindness. Every single day. And what did you find? Annabel asked. His eyes met hers. I found people like you. Annabel's mouth opened slightly. You didn't just give me food, Annabel. You gave me dignity. You never asked questions. You never looked down on me. I watched hundreds pass me like trash. But you stopped. She was speechless. Collins stood and walked toward the glass shelf near the window. He picked something and handed it to her. It was a notebook. Old and worn. I wrote about every moment. About you. Your smile. The days you looked tired but still stopped to give me food. You reminded me of what humanity really is. Annabel's eyes filled with tears. Collins also brought out a thick brown envelope and handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside were documents, letters, and a job offer. Assistant Director of Community Impact, CD Holdings, she read aloud. You'll be in charge of our new project, one that supports the homeless, widows, struggling students. Real help. Real change, he said. Annabel covered her mouth. Sarah, standing beside her, smiled. You deserve it. Every bit of it. Collins added. There's one more thing. Just then, the front door opened. 3 men walked in wearing suits. Annabel froze again. She recognized one of them. David. Her ex-boyfriend. The one who dumped her 3 years ago because she wasn't high-class enough. He looked at her in shock. Annabel. Annabel's hands began to sweat. Her heart thumped like a drum inside her chest. David, the same man who once told her she wasn't his type, stood at the entrance, blinking in disbelief. He looked between her and Collins, confused. Annabel, he repeated, stepping forward. What are you doing here? She took a breath. I should ask you the same thing. Collins, sensing the tension, stood beside her calmly. David, meet our new assistant director. David's eyes widened. What? Collins nodded. Yes. She'll be working closely with me on a major project. David looked like he'd swallowed sand. He shifted uncomfortably. You know her? Collins asked casually. David laughed nervously. Well, yeah, we used to, date. A long time ago. Sarah raised her brows. The David. Annabel smiled slightly. Yes. The one who dumped me because I didn't have a car or a fancy bag. David scratched his head. Look, Annabel, that was a long time ago. People change, yeah. She crossed her arms. Some people don't. Collins walked closer. David is the head of one of our marketing teams. But he wasn't aware of this project or who was getting hired. David tried to smile. Small world, huh? Annabel said nothing. Then Collins added, David, you'll be reporting to Annabel from now on. The silence that followed could slice the air. David's face dropped. Wait, what? You heard me, Collins said. She's your boss now. David stared at the floor. For the first time in years, he looked small in her eyes. Annabel turned to Collins. You really didn't have to do that. I didn't, Collins said. But life did. They all sat down, and Sarah brought drinks. David, still stunned, quietly excused himself and left the house. After a few moments, Collins looked at Annabel again. There's more you need to know. About me. About where this all started. She looked at him, curious. He leaned back and stared out the wide glass window. It started the day my mother died. Annabel's eyes widened slightly. Your mum. He nodded. She died in the arms of a stranger. Someone who tried to help her when no one else would. That stranger became my biggest regret, and my biggest lesson. He paused. I never told anyone. Not even Sarah. Sarah looked surprised. Collins, what are you talking about? He turned to her. I've kept this buried for years. But now it's time. You need to hear everything. He stood and walked slowly toward a drawer, pulled out an old picture, and handed it to Annabel. She stared at it, confused. It was a woman, dark-skinned, smiling, holding a small boy. The photo was torn at the edges. That's my mother, Collins said. And the boy in her arms is me. Annabel looked again. She looks kind. She was. And her story is the reason I became who I am. He sat down and whispered, she died because no one helped her on the street that night. And now, I help others so no one else dies feeling invisible. Annabel held the photo in her hands, staring at it longer than she meant to. Something about the woman's eyes, soft, kind, and full of life, felt strangely familiar. She looked up slowly. Collins. What happened to her? He sat back down, his jaw tightening. It was raining. She had collapsed by the roadside, right in front of a boutique in Lekki. People walked past. Some looked. Others laughed. No one helped. Annabel swallowed hard. She was a cleaner in that same boutique. That evening, she had stayed behind to mop the flooded floor. She slipped and hit her head. Tried to make it outside to call for help. But she collapsed. I was 7. Sarah covered her mouth. I didn't know this. She was gone before I could understand what death meant, Collins said, voice low. A woman, a total stranger, knelt beside her and tried to help my mother. She prayed. Held my mother's hand. She was the only one who cared in that moment. Annabel sat quietly, heart heavy. What happened to the woman? Collins looked at her. I don't know. I was too young. But I never forgot her face. Her actions. Her kindness. Then his eyes met Annabel's again. The way you helped me by the roadside was almost exactly like what that woman did. That's why I kept watching you. You reminded me of her. Sarah touched Collins' arm gently. So, Collins continued, when I saw you walk by the first time and drop bread beside me, I felt something shift. Annabel blinked. I was just doing what I could. And that's what made all the difference, he said softly. You didn't give because you had plenty. You gave because you cared. The room was still for a moment. Then Collins stood up and said, Come, there's something I want to show you. They followed him through a hallway that led to a private study. On the desk was a large sketch of a building. This, he said, pointing at it, is the project I've been planning for 3 years. A shelter, skills center, and clinic all in one. For the homeless. For single mothers. For people like my mother. And like the woman who helped her. He looked at Annabel. And I want to name it after you. Annabel's eyes widened. Me. Why? Because you gave me back my purpose, he said. Sarah clapped softly, tearfully. Annabel House. I love it. A lady, Colin's personal assistant, walked in, holding a brown envelope. Sorry to interrupt, but sir, your 4 p.m. meeting is waiting. He nodded. Give me 5 minutes. Annabel stood, still holding the notebook. So, what now? Collins looked at her, a small smile on his lips. That depends on you. Annabel held the notebook tighter as she walked slowly to the large glass doors. Her heart was still racing. She paused and turned to Collins. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Then don't say anything, Collins replied gently. Just be you. She gave him a small, unsure smile, then stepped out with Sarah, who walked beside her quietly. They got into the elevator. You okay? Sarah asked. Annabel nodded slowly. I think so. I didn't expect any of this. Sarah chuckled. I didn't either. But I'm glad it's you. When Annabel reached the office that Monday morning, something had shifted in her. She wasn't just the new hire anymore. People looked at her differently, mostly because word had spread. Whispers followed her down the hallway. That's the lady Collins hired himself. She's the one from the street story. I heard she's the reason behind the new charity project. But Annabel kept her head high. She entered the meeting room, her laptop in hand. And there, seated at the far end of the long glass table, was David. He looked like he hadn't slept well. She took her seat confidently, pretending not to notice him. But of course, he noticed her. He cleared his throat and slid a folder toward her. This is the report you asked for. Annabel glanced at it briefly. Thanks. There was a pause. Then he spoke again, quieter. Look, Annabel, I'm sorry for how I treated you in the past. I was foolish. She looked at him. Yes, you were. He blinked. But, she added calmly, people grow. And maybe you still can. David nodded slowly, clearly unsure of what to say next. The door opened and Collins walked in, dressed in a crisp navy suit. Good morning, team, he said with a confident smile. Let's begin. Everyone sat straighter. As some of you already know, he continued, our next big campaign will focus on something very personal. Human dignity, kindness, and second chances. Annabel's heart fluttered. And the person leading this campaign, Collins added, is someone who embodies those values more than anyone I've ever met. Annabel. Gasps. A few murmurs. David slowly lowered his eyes. Annabel stood up. Thank you, Collins. And thank you all. I believe this project isn't just a campaign. It's a mirror of who we are when no one is watching. There was quiet in the room, the respectful kind. After the meeting, David caught up with her at the corridor. Annabel, he said, do you think we could maybe grab lunch sometime? Just as friends. She looked at him for a second, then smiled. I don't hold grudges, David. But I don't repeat mistakes either. And with that, she walked away, confident, calm, and sure of who she was. Later that evening, she received a text from Collins. I hope you'll say yes. Dinner tomorrow? Not as a CEO or anything fancy. Just Collins and Annabel. She stared at the message, her lips curling into a soft smile. Her fingers hovered over her phone. Annabel hesitated for a second, then typed, yes, tomorrow, 7 p.m. The restaurant Collins chose wasn't fancy or over the top. It was quiet, tucked away in a calm part of Victoria Island, with soft music and warm lighting. Annabel arrived wearing a simple sky blue dress, her hair loosely curled. She looked around nervously. Then Collins appeared, dressed simply in a white shirt and jeans. He smiled the moment he saw her. You came. I said I would, she smiled back. They sat by the window, ordered grilled fish and jollof rice, and talked like old friends. No awkwardness. Just honesty. Collins told her more about his mother, the lessons she left behind. Annabel told him about losing her father and having to grow up quickly for her younger sister, Anaya. As dessert came, Collins leaned forward slightly. I didn't tell you the full reason why I did what I did, sitting on the street like that. Annabel looked at him, curious. He sighed. I had lost myself. I had everything. Money, business, connections. But I felt empty, cold. Then that accident happened. And I realized I was becoming the kind of person who would have walked past my own mother. Annabel's eyes softened. I wanted to find my soul again. And I did. Through you. Collins stood beside her, emotion in his eyes. Annabel also stood up and they went outside the restaurant. As they stood under the night sky, Collins turned to her. I know it's fast, and I won't rush anything. But I want you in my life, Annabel. Not because you helped me on the street, but because you reminded me what it means to be alive. She looked up at him, the breeze blowing gently through her hair. Then don't say it with words, she whispered. Show it. One day at a time. And as they walked side by side into the night, no cameras, no audience, just two people with real hearts and real stories, they both knew something beautiful had started. Sometimes, the people we ignore the most are the ones carrying the greatest value. True kindness isn't about who's watching. It's about what we do when no one is looking. A small act, like giving food or showing concern, can change someone's life. Never judge people by their appearance or situation. You never know who they truly are or what they're going through. What did you learn from this story? What part touched you the most? Please write your thoughts and lessons in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more African stories that touch the heart and teach real-life lessons. Leave a comment below, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Until next time, stay kind, because kindness never goes unnoticed.